everyone, welcome back to The Rise Factor. Today I have Martin Foreman joining me, which we had probably a long time that we wanted to do this, finally have jumped on because we wanted to talk about something today. And this particular theme, I think, is the most overlooked customer experience moment in property management. I'm going to say that again just so it lands with our listeners. The most overlooked customer experience moment in property management. So a very warm welcome, Martin, to the Rise Factor.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here.
So excited for you to be here. So for those listening who may not know your background, can you share more about what you do and your experience within the property management space?
Yeah, so I'm officially the head of sales growth at Movinghub. Although the title probably doesn't define what I actually do. I specialize in the operations side of the business, creating efficiencies through our workflow in terms of our acquisition or partnering with new real estate agencies. I also look at the efficiency side of things in terms of how we manage those relationships on an ongoing basis. So it's a major part of what we are focusing on is those relationships. No different to property management. You've got to have relationships with your owners and your renters, and we're no different here. So managing that part of it, I've had probably 15 plus years experience in utility connections specifically. And all of that obviously working very closely with real estate partners, mainly on the property management side for a big portion of that, and more recently engaging on the sales side of the business too. So, it's not just one of those services that's now kind of restricted for property management. We're definitely diving into the sales side of the business.
Absolutely. So, Martin, what do you believe why the move-in experience has become such an important conversation in property management right now?
Look, I think with everything going on in the current environment with AI, and even automation through integrations several years ago, I think people have wanted to create efficiencies to lower costs within their business. One of the byproducts of that, in my opinion, and maybe others, is that comes at the risk of losing that human element, that human touch. And so I think people are starting to notice or realize this. And I don't know about you or anyone else out there, but we definitely see a movement back towards that being customer centric, whatever that might look like. I mean, real estate has always been a people business. We have always been a people business. And so while integrations and efficiencies are important, and I'm in operations, so I appreciate that more than anybody, but I think you don't want to do that at the risk of losing that human touch. So I think there has been a focus, particularly from us. I mean, me coming to Movinghub, that was a large part of the role. How do we stay connected with our partners as we scale, so that we don't lose that human element to it? And I think when you consider that human element, you put yourself in the shoes of the customer and how they experience your business and engaging with your business. And look, some people do it for stars, Google ratings, and that's a nice byproduct. But I think first and foremost, it's putting the effort in to make sure that your customers, whoever they might be, become raving fans. What's the exceptional experience that you're providing them? So the move-in moment, as you put it, I think is a really integral part of that. There's the process of signing up for a property, being approved to a property, inspecting a property, all of that stuff that leads up to them being approved. But then how can an agent amplify or make that experience of the actual move even better?
Why is the move-in moment being overlooked by some?
Look, I think we're very busy. We're busy people. Along with the advent of technology, we're expected to do more. And I think once all the formalities have been taken care of from an obligation perspective, um, I think it's very easy to just move on to the next thing because everyone's got a long list. So I think it's a matter of being intentional. If if you're intentional with following through right to the end, then you will actually focus on, okay, well, we've signed the lease agreement, we've got the move-in date, all of that stuff. How do we make that just a little bit better? How do we, as an agency, how do we set ourselves apart from everybody else? And I think that's a critical factor is seeing that through right to the end. But to answer your question, I think it's just, everyone's so busy, they need to move on to the next task.
Mm. From my own personal experiences, Martin, I know that moving home is probably one of the most stressful experiences and moments that someone can have in their life. What do you think customers actually remember most about the moving home process or moving in process?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think it might not necessarily be what they all remember most. I mean, look, I think that old adage comes in, you might forget what people say or what people do, but you'll never forget how they made you feel. So I think if you, as a property management team, if you make people feel supported through that transition into a new home, I think that's going to make a huge difference how you
Mm.
made them actually feel.
Yeah,
Um,
because when we look at that, Martin, then what are some common frustrations renters would be experiencing during moving in that perhaps some agencies may not even realize are actually happening right now?
I mean, look, the reality is, I think most agencies are probably using a connection company. Might not be us, but the reason we exist is to make that process a little bit easier.
Mm.
So if, for example, you're a moving renter, um, you've decided you want to do it all on your own. There's absolutely no problem with that. However, I think one of the key factors is, are you going to do your research? If you're really doing your research, you're going to go to either direct to three, different providers and collect data, or you're going to go to a comparison site and collect data. I mean, with Movinghub, you can do that all in-house, right? So we've got a panel of providers and we can make that part of the process easier. So instead of wasting time comparing through another platform, you can come straight to us and we can do that for you. Um, I think if they do it themselves and connections don't happen, I think there's a risk there because they just don't get looked after well.
Mm.
I think at least by using a connection company, you've got some security that as a renter, you've got some recourse. So, if the connection doesn't happen, they'll either put you up in accommodation. I mean, I'm not sure that everyone does. I know we do, but we'll put you up in accommodation. We'll look after your food bill if you need to. Like, we'll go that extra mile to ensure that they're comfortable.
Mm.
But if they're doing it themselves, that's probably the biggest challenge they're going to have is if it doesn't happen, they're left out in the dark. And
Yeah.
if it's winter in Melbourne, they're cold as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's just touching base on more of the human experience. Like we need to be mindful as professionals that there's so many things happening during moving home and to be able to assist and guide someone to make it easy and know that things are going to be looked after on their move-in date or even before is so important. And it's not just utility connections, right, Martin? Like there's so many other things that anyone that's moving into a home needs to think about. Like utilities is obviously something, but we've got to
Yeah.
look at internet, removalist, perhaps they need tradies, and so how are we supporting our clients during that time and making it so easy and seamless for them so that we are actually helping elevate that human experience so that we're not missing that moment where they actually want to move in and feel joyous, happy, stress-free, easy. I mean, the day I moved into my property, because I rent best, utilities were all good thanks to Movinghub. It was all streamlined and easy. but our removalist on the day was absolute nightmare. And I had such a bad experience. And I did something that you said, and I Googled someone, and, on what looked to be good with their Google reviews was actually not true. And in fact, and I would have loved our property manager that we were using to actually provide information or recommendations on who to use so that we had an enjoyable moving experience, because we moved on the day of my birthday and I ended up in tears because of our removalist. And so when we look at that moment, well, that's something that our current agent could have helped avoid on that day.
Yeah. And look, I think there's a bit of education that goes around that. That's why, the human element and the relationship management piece is so important, is to make your partners aware of what you can do. Because I would have it a guess that not everybody, sorry, that's my phone. I would have it a guess that not everybody knows that we do removalists as well.
Mm.
Because not every connection provider does. And I think for us, like a real estate business looking to take on a partner like Movinghub or whoever it might be, you're conscious of how that third party is going to manage that relationship with their client.
Mm.
So we're no different. We've got a third party removalist who performs really well. And that's important to us because if we are recommending them, that's going to reflect poorly on our brand if it doesn't go well.
Mm-hmm.
So having that awareness around what's available through your current provider is really important too.
Yeah, well, that was actually what I was going to lead into next, is because one thing that is interesting, and from me moving home just this year, is how many external providers are actually involved in a move, and
Yeah,
how much the influence on the customer's perception of the agency in itself matters here with who they're using for their third party. So I really
yeah.
glad that you touched on that. So do you feel like customers separate the agency from the partner experience, or does it all become like one brand?
Look, I think there can be some separation. It can also be one brand. I mean, for instance, we've got a white labeling solution, right? So we can actually have the agency's brand front and center. So it becomes essentially their connections business, if you like. Um, and there has to be an enormous amount of trust in that when that agency is putting their brand to it. Um, I think on the flip side, it can be very separate, where you have a distinct brand. So, like the brand says above my head, it can be a standalone brand like that. Um, However, I think in both cases, there is going to be that element of, cohesion
Mm.
during that busy time. Is the person moving really thinking about your individual brands? They're thinking about the how the process has flowed from start to finish, and
Mm.
essentially they're dealing with you as an agent or a property management team. So I think if you've made the recommendation, the assumption is that that third party's been vetted and they become a part of your business's ecosystem. Whether you have a standalone brand or not, I don't think it matters. It's going to be, you're going to be painted with the same brush.
Yeah. What should agencies then be looking for when choosing their service providers for their clients?
Yeah, it's quite a critical question because there's not a lot of awareness around this, or not enough awareness around this. And look, that may just be because there's not a lower degree of care factor. I think there's a huge amount of care factor there, but it's like I said in the very beginning, everyone's busy and you have a long list of tasks to get through in a day. So whether you find the time to actually vet this kind of information, I think one of the important things is to understand who they're representing, who that third party is representing. What's the ownership structure? So that forms a critical part of it, and that actually then flows through directly to the customer experience. So several utility connection companies are owned by the big retailers, right? So Inevitably, that means that the connecting client, whether they're in rentals or sales, they're buying a house and moving in or renting a house and moving in, they're going to get limited choice. So um, our our strategy as a business was not to limit that choice. So we're still independent, and we're arguably the last business that is, and that gives clients choice.
Mm.
So instead of just going with one product and you're left wondering, is it a good product? Am I paying too much? And with the cost of living now, that's very topical. So we
Mm.
want to ensure that people, while it may not be the best price in the market, it's going to be pretty close to it. We don't have everybody on the panel, but we've certainly got a wide range of choice for people to choose from. And the way that we'll take them through that process would be to essentially select the cheapest plan at the top, most expensive plan at the bottom, and then they can choose who they want to go with. So if they've had a bad experience with whoever is the cheapest,
Mm.
they can choose the next one. But it's based on a bit of intelligence, a bit of market research. So I think that's a huge one. Am I partnering with somebody who's going to offer that, or am I partnering with essentially a big retailer?
Mm.
So I think that's a huge part of the selection process. Obviously, there are other commercial elements to it as well. So that'll be a factor. But I think if we're focusing on the customer experience, that first point is probably the biggest.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like one of the things that agencies should consider is, well, is the service partner actually in alignment between your values for
Yeah.
the business? Like, if we are essentially selecting a partner that becomes an extension of our business and our brand, do the values match? Are we in aligned? Is the customer experience exactly what our customers need and want? I feel like that's got to be part of the conversation rather than just the commercial benefit, or, I mean, I'm just going to say it, Martin, what some companies will just flag around in terms of money just to get the business without actually aren't considering what's best for the customer. And we have a responsibility in property management to look after our customers.
Yeah.
And I feel like we want to ensure that not only are they getting a good deal, but the experience that they are getting with using this partner that, I know Movinghub white labels, is they don't know the difference. It's just essentially every step feels seamless and the client still feels cared for. I mean, again, the agency that we got approved, they didn't offer any assistance for any of our utility or anything when we moved in. And so I'm just one person, and I'm grateful I work in the industry. So I'm connected with people like yourself to help me with get a good deal and making sure it was all easy. But there are renters out there who generally need the help, don't know any better, that need that experience. And not just like renters, right? We spoke about sales, but we're looking at vendors, purchasers, and your landlords. Like, majority of landlords potentially moving from one property to another property, and they might also need assistance with connecting things or removalists or moving boxes, etc., for also their property. And so I think this is just crucial. Like, when we look at the move in moment and experience, like, utilities is one thing, but
Yeah.
there are so many different components that we need to look at to help that experience be so easy and seamless for them. So, Man, what are the best agencies doing differently when it comes to reducing any friction during the move-in period then?
Yeah, I think like anything, communication is a huge part of that. So when I talk about communication, as the renter's being approved, we'll use the renter as the example, as the renter's being approved, are they aware that services like this exist? Believe it or not, not every agency will actually have a conversation with the renter moving in. So some offices still have a fully automated process where everything is done via
Email.
email and SMS.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think picking up the phone, and I'm biased here because I see the results, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we've got data on who's doing what well, and the ones
Yeah.
who are doing well have that conversation, not not as not to position utility connections, but just in general. Like
Yeah.
it's that improves the customer experience because an email could be overlooked. When you're making a phone call and you're leaving a message or you send a follow-up SMS, that client knows exactly what's happening. And if they are unclear, then they can make that call back. But also, in that phone call, you can position things better than you can in an email where things might get missed.
Mm.
So, definitely having that conversation makes a massive difference to the overall experience. Ensuring that there's adequate opportunity within any follow-up emails to assist. So with your example, right? Like if you've got someone who provides moving boxes, we don't do that. It's a great idea, by the way.
Yeah. Take it,
But
run with it.
um, that could be something that they have in there. Like, what are you in the moving process? You're going to have to do this, 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 and this. We
Mm.
can help you with a range of those.
Mm.
We can tie up your utilities in one phone call as well as arranging a removal list in that call. We've got a box supply if you need boxes for the move, et cetera, et cetera. So having those embedded in any follow-up emails in the process is also important. Um, and so I think even with those two touch points alone, we noticed a significant improvement in one, people actually knowing what we do. So when they get the call, they're not thinking, who's calling me and why did the real estate agent hand over my details? So if they weren't made aware, and
Mm.
we say we've received your information from your real estate agent, no one likes those kind of surprises. So
Yeah.
getting ahead of those things dramatically improves the overall customer experience. I think that's a big one. So just communication in general, but specific to what we're talking about, that move-in experience, conversation once they're approved, and a follow-up email with sort of a call to action there if they need it.
Yeah. A couple of months ago, another trainer and I, Casey Lawrence from the Rental Network, and I did a webinar on the onboarding experience for our landlords and our tenants. And we actually spoke about this in depth, Martin. And we then, in some like live workshops, we've actually asked the question to the property managers, like, how hands up, how many of you have actually know what your landlords and tenants look like, and no one could put their hand up 100%. And so
Mm,
something that Casey and I even suggested is not just to have a phone call, but can you set up a Zoom meeting, or
yeah.
can you FaceTime your renters and be like, hey, I'm Sarah, I'm your property manager. Congratulations. We're so thrilled that you're going to be moving into your new home. And I just wanted to ask you a few questions to see if you need any assistance with da da da. And so then it's not a selling thing. It's like, we want to help you make sure that your experience and your moving experience is seamless, and this is what we can do, right? Because like you said, there's so many things that we need to think of during the moving. Like for me, one of my pain points was moving boxes. I had to resort to going to the chemist and asking if I could have their boxes, which funnily enough, they recycle. So that was fine. Going to Safeway, asking if they had any boxes. Because when I looked at Marketplace, the boxes would go like that. And so that's why I was like, oh my God. And I actually heard Josh Fegan talking about it at the One conference earlier this year. And he said for buyers that were moving or vendors, he recommended offices have boxes in their offices available for their clients. And I thought that's genius. But how amazing if there was, that service is an offering, because we
Yeah.
know that's something that the clients will need. And I think this is going back to that human experience. Let's focus on what they actually need and want, not just what we think that they need or want. And a phone conversation is all good, but like, you want to be great, organize a Zoom, do a
Yeah.
FaceTime with your
Yeah.
renters.
If you want to set yourself apart from your competitors, I think it's a great opportunity.
Mm.
That moving experience is a great opportunity. And from what I see, there are your question before, what are people who are doing this really well, what are they doing? Those are the sort of things that they're doing. It's the little
Yeah.
one percenters. It might take a little bit of extra effort, but the results and the outcomes and the benefit they get from that is, a multiplier of that.
Yeah, we avoid friction. Renters start looking at you like you're actually a human.
Yeah,
You start the relationship on the right foot. When the property manager needs to call the owner, they've put a face to the name and they've got something to have a conversation about as well. And one of the things that you said is like we can have those workflows and those automations in place, which I think is there's a definitely and still a need for it. But if we're looking at not losing that human touch and elevating the client experience, and we need to do these little 1%er things to make sure our clients are feeling valued at the end of the day.
absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So what are some small operational changes that agencies can make immediately that will create that noticeable difference for their clients?
I mean, look, I don't know if it's a small operational difference, but as we were just talking about picking up the phone, it's probably number one. Number two, doing an audit on what your acceptance email looks like. So having spent many years in the industry, it's one of the first things that I would do with an office who we're onboarding is to do an audit there. Particularly in Victoria, I think that's a good opportunity. We haven't talked about water. I mean, you're in a different part of the world, but in Vic, you have to split out the owner's bill and the renter's bill. And that can be a horrific process if you don't get it right. So if you want to take administrative burden away from your property management team and your connections provider has a really robust process in place for processing water, that can save you heaps of time. And look, one, it's just immediately you save time in the administration that goes with submitting a water application to the water board, right? But where you save heaps of time is if the water board doesn't process that application. And that's just part of dealing with water companies. Unfortunately, every now and then it doesn't get processed, a water bill's not set up. When you're trying to rectify that, that's where the real time saving comes in. So if you've actually had a third party do that for you, they will take up the burden. So at Movinghub, if there's an issue, we'll actually liaise with the water board on the agent's behalf. And that can take weeks to resolve sometimes, depending on which water company you're talking with, but also it chews up admin time. So that's a real time saver. So having a think about, through that audit process, is that something that we're prepared to offload to our third party? And it doesn't mean you have to do everything straight away. You could test that as well. So you could go portfolio at a time or just do a handful of applications to make sure that you're comfortable with it before you completely hand over that process. But that'd be a big time saver, I think. So audit the follow-up communications, add a phone call in there. I mean, I think that's, you're suggesting that's a best practice task for people to add into their repertoire. So those two things alone can help.
Yeah, for sure. And Mano, I often, because of the nature of my business, hear a lot of agencies talk about growth and performance. But do you think that the customer experience is now becoming one of the strongest drivers of sustainable business success?
I think so. I mean, in real estate, everyone's probably heard the saying that renters turn into buyers. So if you provide a great customer experience for them as a renter, or then naturally you might feature on their shopping list when it's time for them to buy. So I think in addition to that, where there might be a tangible growth element is the byproduct of offering great customer experience, communicating with your customer well, letting them know that these services are available to them so that it helps remove some of that moving friction. I think if you can do that, and they do have a good experience because you've pre-positioned it, they're expecting the phone call, there's a growth element in terms of the income that can be made from that. So it's not it's not to be done for the income, it's to be done to provide a great customer service experience. And the byproduct of that is increased revenue. And like, not everyone likes talking about it, but I think it's as an owner of a business, particularly in the landscape that we're currently in, that's important.
Mm.
So people want to be able to pay their bills. And, we see this consolidation of rent rolls because people with smaller rent rolls are just finding it hard. So
Mm.
I think if you can focus on offering a great customer experience, you can actually generate additional revenue.
Mm.
And in a rent roll perspective, that could be, close to 8-9% on one rental property. So
Mm.
you're making a management fee by doing the utility connections well. You could be increasing the value of that property by about 8 or 9% per annum.
Wow, that's awesome. So I guess it would be fair to say though that the commercial uplift though is the byproduct of doing the customer experience exceptionally
100%.
well.
Yes, because if you're not doing that, um, I think it all comes back to help as many people as you can.
Mm.
And if you're trying to add value to people, as opposed to thinking of them as a commodity, well, then you're always going to win. Because I think by focusing on the customer experience first, customer service first,
Mhm.
you'll always win because people enjoy good customer service. People are happy. I mean, you just need to look at Google reviews. You're either
Mm.
going to give a really good one, so it's either 5 or 1.
Or
So I
none.
think, or none. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people who have a really good experience are also happy to give you praise. So I think when you focus on that, you kind of win on all fronts.
Yeah. All right, I want to do some like future thinking and talk about the evolution of our industry. How do you think the customer expectations in property management are evolving?
The customer expectations.
Yeah. How do you think that they
Um,
are evolving?
oh, I don't know, you might have put me on the spot with that one, Sam.
That's what it's about, Martin. That's what the Rise Factor is about. Look, I
Look,
think we know anyway that I think a lot of, as a society, we're wanting things pretty quick. Why wouldn't our consumers want us to take some of that mental load off them
yeah,
and just know that it's done, set and forget? I think transparency, one thing I know Movinghub does really well is, when it's connected, there's that clear communication with your clients, which I think is also important. So I think that that's where I'm seeing some of the expectations evolving. They just
yeah.
want speed, efficiency, done, set, forget.
And being like, I think just as creatures, human creatures, right? Like we like things to be easy and we're always seeking easier ways to do things. And I
Yeah.
think it's why companies like ours exist. If you can do multiple things in one action or phone call, or if it's online as well, then and you can, that's probably a good point. So, one of the questions you asked before was, what do you need to look out for your partner? If they've got a digital connection process as well,
Mm.
or a digital process for whatever service it is, that's also going to help because then you're not tied to a call center. If you're tired, you've come home from work, made dinner, put the kids to bed, and then you're sitting in front of the TV unwinding. It's like, oh, I can do that now. So you don't have to rely on opening hours for a call center to actually do things. So that's probably another thing to consider when looking at your partner, but definitely the ease of doing things. I
Mm.
think on one hand, it's the ease of doing things. On the other, it's am I getting value for that? Because typically convenience, you're paying more for it.
Mm.
So supermarket versus a 7-Eleven, you're always going to get a cheaper product at a supermarket because 7-Elevens are there purely for your convenience and you pay for that.
Mm.
I think the beautiful thing about businesses like ours is that they get both and there's no charge for it.
Mm.
So provided you're partnered with the right business, then you're going to get value, which is where our choice piece comes in, speaking specifically about Movinghub, but also the convenience that comes with that. So that's a big one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like future thinking now. If we're talking about convenience and some of the things that we've discussed, or some of the pain points I faced, I think we'll see um, more property managers actually going, well, how do we help someone with their whole journey before they move in or when they move out of a
Yeah.
home, and making that really streamlined, making it convenient for our clients and charging for it. Because you said earlier, Martin, right?
Essentially.
You used a word and it's busy, but property management is not the only profession that's busy,
Yeah.
right? Like you just look at the world at the moment, everyone's busy. So if we can help our clients make things more convenient with times that are usually stressful for them, and that's moving in and out of homes, I feel like there's a big opportunity there, not only to generate some extra revenue, because like we said, that's important to businesses, but to actually really showcase to our clients, we care, and those things cannot be automated because we
Yeah.
need to have a conversation with our clients to unpack what exactly they would like assistance with.
Yes, I agree with that. And then if you fast forward talking about future thinking, it's not just the move-in process. What happens after the move-in process? So if
Mm-hmm.
you're a renter versus a buyer, if you're, you've just purchased a home and you move into a home, there are statistics that suggest soon after those people move in, they're potentially going to be buying a new car. So about a third of people that buy a
Mm.
home will then buy a new car pretty shortly after that. So there are also opportunities post the move, which is one of the areas that we're certainly trying to expand into,
Mm-hmm.
and that is all of those additional services where if we make that easy for them to do it in one spot on an ongoing basis, well then it's that whole customer for life kind of look and feel, right?
For
Like if
sure.
you're a real estate agent, that could involve things like following up with that customer every 12 months and seeing if they want to review their mortgage. There could be an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity there, right? So when you're
Yeah.
busy, you don't necessarily think about
Think.
these things unless it's topical. So at the moment, it's topical. Mortgage rates are topical. It's all over the
Mm-hmm.
news. It's front of mind for people.
Yeah.
But if it's not, if we're not in one of those periods, and you offer a service where you're genuinely thinking, "Right, how can I help this customer?" What a great opportunity. If you can save that person some money as a real estate agent, who do you think they're going to list their property with when it comes time
Oh,
to sell? If you've saved them thousands on their mortgage, they're coming to you first.
absolutely. And for the BDMs listening, which I hope you're still listening and you've got to this far, I mean, what a great value add that you are able to offer to your potential clients and showcasing the care that you place in both of your consumers, which are your landlords and your tenants, and remembering that majority of the time your landlords also need some of these services from the providers that you are engaging with. So although we tend to focus heavily on our tenants, we've got our landlords that are needing those services just as much or if not often, which what you're referring to, Martin.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I think on
yeah.
the utility connection side too, like we're not just restricted to the move-in experience as well. So touching on that point with owners of rental properties, the a great opportunity is the bill comparison. So for your landlords, you can offer that, but you can also
Mm,
offer it to renters at the lease renewal stage because it becomes a relevant talking point,
mm,
whether that's 6 or 12 months after they've moved in. Generally speaking, 12 months, you've had a bit of rate creep. So again, coming back to the experience, how are you
mm,
helping them on an ongoing basis? And it's another service that we offer that, you know, touching on one of your other questions, what are other agencies or what are your best performing agencies doing well? That's another thing they're doing well.
mm.
It's customer centric thinking all the time. So,
Yeah.
as a renter, you move in, great, we've helped you with your move in process. But don't worry, we're also going to let you know when it might be time to review your bills so that you're not paying too much.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah.
all of that stuff. It's the future thinking is past the move. How can we help past the move?
So one thing I know that some property management professionals might be saying, perhaps because I've seen this online, is that renters don't give a shit about anything that we're saying. Do you agree or disagree?
The data would disagree.
Yeah.
So uh, forget about my opinion. If you look at the data disagrees.
Yeah.
So, I think people are wanting an easier way to do things. They're wanting a faster way to do things. They are happy when people extend a helping hand. I think probably a big part of that is coming full circle to the communication piece. If people don't know who the utility connection business is, they don't know who Moving Hub is, when we call them, there's that sort of initial shock. We've got to then work hard to try and warm that conversation up so that they don't think we're a scammer, because it's just a natural thing. If people don't recognize a number or they don't recognize a link in an SMS, of course they're not going to use it. So it really comes back again to that communication piece. If you do that part well, then people will take the service up. So we've always said, people look at conversion. What's your conversion rate? Well, conversion's a partnership. It can't just be all lumped on the connections provider. I don't care who it is. Not if it's not Movinghub and it's somebody else, they're still going to have the same issue. If it's not pre-positioned, people don't know, then they're unlikely to use it. So the value comes when people are informed, they know it's coming, and they go, great service, I'm going to use it. And that's where the whole process works.
I love that. Martin, I've loved having you on today. I've got 3 final, fast questions to answer before we wrap up. One thing customers value more than agencies realize.
Getting help.
Yeah.
That's a relatively easy one. I know that's a really basic answer, but
yeah.
I mean, getting as much help as they can through that process.
Technology or human connection, what matters more?
I would say 49-51 in favor of human.
Okay, I love that answer. One word to describe the future of property management.
Is that a trick question? I've got one word in mind, but I don't want to say it.
You can say it. It's an open space.
One word to describe property management in the future. Hard.
I think it's not already hard enough. Hard. I think one word that comes to mind though is valuable. Future of property management is valuable because I feel like we've evolved quickly, but I think especially over the next 12 months, we're going to have to evolve even more quickly with the use of AI and technology. But there are certain things that AI and technology cannot replicate. And that's why I think the future of property management will be based all around the value to our consumers.
Well, you would know better than me because you live and breathe this every day. I say hard in tongue in cheek as well. I think property managers work really hard. I see the challenges that property managers face every single day, and I think it takes a certain type of person to do property management, and I've got a lot of respect for that. So, I don't know. I think I'll stick with my way. I think valuable is also very good.
Yeah. Martin, thanks so much for joining again today on the Overlooked Customer Experience Move-In Moment. If anyone would like to reach out to you or the team at Movinghub, where should we direct them to?
Movinghub at LinkedIn or movinghub.com, our website.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll also include the link below to any of our listeners. Please make sure that you follow some great advice that Martin gave you, especially when looking at your audit of your acceptance emails and really elevating your conversations that you are having with your clients, and make sure you're elevating the human experience. Martin, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
No worries. And as always, to everyone listening, keep rising.